This is Demetria Guidry, and my PowerPoint is on power, race, and economics in America. How the idea of race keeps poverty high, power low, and equal educational opportunities almost impossible amongst minority populations. In 2016, the New York Times released an article that showed the top 503 most powerful people in American culture. Out of the 503, only 44 of them listed are minorities. The list includes all people in American culture who have a rather large influence on business, government, education, and laws. What is America about? Well, I think that depends on who you ask. Perception is reality. I think most Americans would say that America is the land of the great, that we have the best opportunities for all. But I would say that all depends on who you ask. Perception is reality after all. Each person's perception of their reality is their truth, no matter if it is right or wrong. Reality, minorities only represent 0.08%. Out of the 503, since only 44 minorities, that means that minorities only represent 0.08% of the most powerful or influential people in the United States. Though this may seem normal to most, it is especially to Americans who represent the minorities. Race in America? Why can't we forget about America's history with the idea of race? Our class text, Multicultural Education in a Pluralistic Society, begins by reminding us of how the history of race in America was after slavery. Many had to give up their native languages and behaviors or hide them at home. However, the acculturation does not guarantee acceptance by the dominant group. Most members of the oppressed groups, especially those of color, have not been permitted to assimilate fully into society, even though they have adopted the values and behaviors of the dominant culture. Here's a fact. Race is socially constructed. Though race is socially constructed, it had become a standard at which it was acceptable to judge others by. Other humans were deemed less deserving and less worthy of a life of equality, solely based on their perceived race. Race today, power is in the illusion. History with race has continued to plague our country, and it shows in our government, with our elected officials, and in how we continue to educate the poor. With continued division amongst racial populations, it is easy to keep power in the hands of one dominant culture. Eliminating racial discrimination may not be in the dominant culture's benefit financially. Race and socioeconomic status. Golnick and Shin also bring to our awareness that certain groups of people in America have not been allowed equality and opportunities even today. The opportunity to live in a safe environment, have access to health care, and adequate education can still be hindered if you're not a part of the dominant group. Higher socioeconomic statuses allow us the opportunities to access what is needed to transcend generational poverty. Why are minorities still underrepresented in positions of power if race is no longer a concern? Well, let's consider Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. Maslow's first level is physiological. Maslow's theory says if a human's physical needs are not met, like food, shelter, clothes, water, etc., then they will not be able to achieve any other higher level thinking tasks because they will have to spend all of their time meeting their basic physiological first. How does Maslow's theory connect? Golnick and Chen also discussed in their book that minorities tend to live in poverty, in unsafe neighborhoods, and the schools have very little funding coming in due to the low property taxes of the area. Maslow might say minorities in many cases are still trying to meet their very basic needs and cannot move up the hierarchy to achieve more. Money. Money is needed in order to meet the basic needs of humans, and with the minority population having very little, it is highly likely that they will even be able to take advantage of higher education opportunities. Money is the key to meeting basic needs, moving to a safe environment, capitalizing on higher education, and then having the opportunity to move up socially and politically. It is almost never achieved without it. What does this mean for minority families? Minority families' only hope seems to be more money and or legislation that helps them gain better employment opportunities and access to the very same education as those who live in poverty. Secondly, a breakdown of the status quo that has made it so easy for those to exclude others based on race, SES, and gender. As long as the same conditions exist, money in the hands of the dominant culture will stay the same. Thus, so will the conditions of all others. What does this mean to us educators? We have a very large job to do. We must systematically break down our own biases and teach to each child's needs. We must be sure to offer quality education to all children in our classrooms. We must be aware that race and socioeconomic status affect a child's ability to learn in the classroom. They are not abstract concepts. They are very real to those who experience it. It is our job to do what we can to teach them.